Running the most efficient race will result in peak performance. Running the least efficient race results in below par performance. Here's a pretty extreme example of what I'm talking about. The race we're looking at is it's race number 4 on August 22nd at Thistle Downs. It involves Rapid Redux, who of course won more than 20 consecutive races, most of which throughout 2011. Now, in this race, Rapid Redux gets involved in an absolutely vicious speed duel. He earns a pace figure for a half mile more than 5 lengths faster than he'd run in any of his, surrounding races throughout his form. And he had to do that while getting fanned out 3 to 4 wide the entire way through the first turn in this duel. Now, as you could see, this is the kind of race that is, as inefficient as you can possibly run. I mean, you could just get burned up with a trip like this. Horses will, routinely run 20 to 40 or to 50, sometimes 60 points below their figures, depending on how, extreme they quit. But you never run well with a trip like this. The horse that's getting a great trip in this race is Gold Prospect. He's a horse that's sitting a clear and uncontested 4th, well off the duel. Why is that a perfect trip? Because a fast pace up front sets him up to run a peak speed figure. The number that you get from a race like this is just going to be the absolute max of your ability. He can, wait for the duel. He gets a clear run. He's got no one behind him to engage him. Horses with the trip that Gold Prospect has here virtually always run career top speed figures. The other horse who's getting a pretty decent trip is Hatch. Now, he's a one-dimensional closer. He's back there 5th and last in this race. Will the 3 up front kill themselves? And he's getting more pace to work with than he ever will. He's another one that's going to, run a race that he'll have an extremely hard time repeating. And he's going to get a figure that he'll never have a shot at running back to if he stays in, relative form. As you can see here, Rapid Redux is, put away the other 2 duelers. Those horses went out at about a grade 3 stake pace. They couldn't, they've fallen down trying to run with him through that. Gold Prospect gets the dream trip, comes up to engage. Looks like he's gonna be a factor. He gets turned back. Here comes another challenge from Hatch. Hatch has got the length of the stretch to get by. He can't get by a badly staggering and tired Rapid Redux. Now, when you look at the forms of these horses, obviously you can see, Rapid Redux is all of his buyer figures are in the 83 to 88 range surrounding this race, except for the 67. So. Obviously the duel, really hurt him from a speed figure standpoint. He didn't run an efficient race, caused him to run a low speed figure. You can see that with the Moss pace figures, a 92 for a half mile. His second fastest would be an 84, so that would be 8 points. That's 6 lengths on Moss pace figures that he run faster for a half mile than any other race on his form. It was an extremely gutty win against extremely inferior horses. And Gold Prospect, he's a horse that's just, as mediocre as they come. Just recently, January 9th, he ran in a $3,500 claiming race at Beulah Park and was 7th at 149 to 1 in a race with a $3,900 purse. Now, if you remember, he just gave Rapid Redux, a strong bit on the turn and finished 3rd to him. Obviously, his form deteriorated. He got the dreamiest of dream trips in that race. And then, of course, Hatch, who almost beat him, you look at his form, he was a horse that ran for conditioned $2,500 claimers. In fact, he was claimed for $2,500 on July 11th at Thistle Downs, where he was beat as the 6-5 favorite. Second by a half length to Rapid Redux. He's come back. He's, bombed twice off that race. He went to Thistledown in January and just ran another extremely dismal race at Thistle. He's a horse that's probably nothing more than a $2,500, $3,500 claiming horse. He just was made to look better than he was because he was able to run on that day, at least on August 22nd. He was made to look better than he was. Came within a half a length of Rapid Redux. Virtually no one else has come as close on Rapid Redux's streak of beating him. He got the pace that day. He ran the most efficient race. Rapid Redux did not. Some famous historical examples of this. Cigar in the Pacific Classic. Of course, Cigar had won something like 16 races in a row. Was just a beast, winning them all at the Grade 1 level. Jerry Bailey was worried about a horse named Siphon in there, and Siphon, Dramatic Gold, and Cigar hook up in a vicious, vicious three-way speed duel through, extremely fast fractions like 23, 45, and 4, 109, and 1. Cigar's widest of them all. And Darren Go, a long shot, who really, he'd run 100 times against Cigar, and he'd soundly lose all 100 times in fairly run races. He was able to get that same trip Gold Prospect got in the Rapid Redux race. A clear fourth off of 3 dueling leaders. He was able to run the most efficient race possible. Cigar certainly wasn't. Siphon certainly wasn't. And not only did he beat Cigar on that day, but he also soundly beat Siphon. And Siphon could run 100 times against Darren Go in fairly run races. He'd probably win almost every time. You go probably the greatest upset in the history of racing. Jim Dandy, officially they say 100 to 1 in the 1930 Travers. It was a 4-horse field. You could have, according to some of the stuff I've read from back then, you could have named your own price on them. The bookmakers, if you wanted 500 to 1, bookmakers would have given it to you in those days. But the great Gallant Fox, a Triple Crown winner, and Which One, who was an outstanding horse with an outstanding record, they hooked up in a cutthroat speed duel. They just went way too fast over a track that was very, very slow and tiring. It was producing slow times throughout the day. Gallant Fox and Which One took each other apart. Jim Dandy sat that clear and uncontested third, basically mopped up the survivors of the duel, and the other horse in the race never passed him. So Jim Dandy, who was just a brutally bad horse, he had no ability whatsoever. Huge upset. They named a race after him at Saratoga. Darren Go looks like spectacular bid compared to Jim Dandy, but this is just another example of a horse running the most efficient possible race. Will 2 wildly superior horses go out, duel each other, and duel each other to a walk almost. Of course, at Saratoga, they had Rachel Alexandra in her final race, her and Life at 10. They hook up in, one of these just vintage, vicious speed duels. This is, almost like the Gallant Fox Jim Dandy race, about 80 years later. As you can see out of the gate, Burrell's trying to discourage Velasquez on Life at 10. He's going to float her about 4 to 5 wide through that first turn. They're going at like 130 figure pace. This is just, they're killing each other out there. They're going to stop. If this race was 1.1 miles, no way should they be able to get that. It's 1.25 miles. Just psychotic stuff. Absolutely psychotic. Persistently, who's a plotter. She's a bum. Relative bum for the Grade 1 stakes level. She's just going to, lay back behind this pace, and she's the only one who runs an extremely efficient race in here. The others, are too close. They're not very good themselves, and they're too close to this, wild speed duel. People don't understand. A lot of people don't how Saratoga, the make pace figures. They're fractions there. This is like 23 and 3, 47 and 3 at that track, going 1.25 miles is like 45 at a lot of other tracks. So of course Rachel Alexandra gets beat in this race. A lot of people made this out to be like some black mark on a record. It was actually a great performance. It was absolutely her best performance as a 4-year-old. Life at 10, who gets beat, about 10 lengths here to Persistently. comes back next out in a grade 1, just destroys persistently, beats her with ease, beats the next out Breeders' Cup Distaff winner with ease. Good performance by both Rachel Alexander and Life at 10 to, not stop even more dramatically. But this is an example of, very extreme examples. I picked some very extreme examples, but I want you to get the point. I want you to get the point that you have to be able to run an efficient race to run a good number.